Welcome to the Nailed It Wall.
Welcome to episode 3 of the Nailed It Wall.
This week, we're going to take a look back at the year that was. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. And we're back. Welcome to another episode of the Nailed It Wall. I'm Mr. Lane, the STEM guy.
And I'm Mrs. Scofield.
Well, we always like to start off our episodes talking about how we nailed it or how we failed it. And this week, I kind of want to start off. I was so excited that we finally got our podcast published on every medium you can think of, Stitcher, Spotify, iCloud, SoundCloud, and it was such a great feeling, and I wanted to surprise you with our very own stickers from Sticker Mule. I was so pumped up. I thought I got these perfect sizes that would go on our hydro flasks as well as the top of our computers. I ordered them. They told me it was going to be here like in 2 weeks. I even told you early about this. I'm like, you're not going to believe what I did. I ordered these stickers. So pumped, and I got them in the mail. And what size were they?
A little bit larger than postage stamps. Yeah, they're pretty small.
Yeah, so $28 later, I definitely nailed it there. Do you want to share any nailed it stories?
Yeah, I had a good one. So my son went to camp, and he came back, and we were just chatting about his time, and he said, I was pretty sad at camp. I was literally the only kid that didn't get a card from their parents at camp.
Now, do you think this is Sam just exaggerating the fact? Or?
I don't. I get the feeling that everyone else knew that you send cards to camp. I've never been to summer camp, so it was tough. I feel like I nailed the parent role at that point, but, there's room for improvement. I won't make that mistake twice.
Well, the good news is Sam's at camp back-to-back weeks.
That's right.
Now, did you send him a care package?
Care package. It was pretty solid. I think he'll be pleased. I redeemed myself.
And you're certain that it's going to arrive on time?
Yes, 100%. He's actually already received it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right.
So I nailed it.
You are notorious for the late delivery dates there.
True.
And the good news is you had the back-to-back weeks there to kind of redeem yourself.
That actually was a good thing.
Well, great segue there into to the year that was 2018, 2019. It was just an awesome school year for the things that we were able to do together as we co-collaborate on a lot of the cool things we did. And by far the biggest highlight for us was AstroCamp.
Yeah, AstroCamp was pretty much perfect. Although it didn't start out perfect.
No, totally. And we had the opportunity because of Mr. Vargas, somebody that I just met on a whim at a computer science meeting from our sister school at Legend Springs. And we started out, we wanted to really try to do a two-school trip. She takes the 5th and 6th graders from her SAGE program both years. And if you've ever planned a overnight field trip, it's a lot of work that goes into it.
It was a lot of work. We did not realize what goes into that because we were going to be partnering with them. But due to some circumstances, things shifted, and we learned so quickly how much you need to be able to do to make something like that happen. We were very fortunate, though,
And we took, how many 8th graders did we take?
We took 35?
Yeah.
35.
And we nailed it. We learned so much. We learned so much through the process, and it was so awesome. Kudos to Mrs. DeVargas, being there every step of the stage, meeting with us, sharing supplies, anything that would come into her mind. She was so awesome, stepping up to the plate there.
Things that would not have been on our radar, that are now, but that would not have been on our radar. But something like that, when all of a sudden you have to scramble and figure out how you're going to do something, when you're talking about failure, that definitely felt like we were going to fall pretty flat because we've never taken, to my knowledge, any overnight trip with the 8th graders in that kind of way. I think they do the Disney, I think that's pretty much it. But this is totally different camp, totally different style of everything, and it was multiple days, not just an overnight. And so that was a pretty visible spot to be figuring things out.
Yeah, and AstroCamp is in Idlewild, California. Was it 5,000 feet?
That
elevation.
Sounds right, yep.
I think it's 5,000 feet up there. You really have to pray for the weather being perfect. Everything, you really need everything to fall into lines, and everything really checked out, and it was so amazing. The kids all they talked about was this experience, doing things that they never thought they would do, the sky coaster, zip line, the conversations they had. My biggest highlight was hanging out with Phil. We had some amazing chaperones that really made the trip. Kids loved the food. The conversations were the best.
The
water. The water. And the kids, like some kids even decided not to come just because they couldn't handle the fact of not being away from their technology for like 2 or 3 days. And it was great just to see how them having conversations at mealtime, that downtime in between. And
even the bus ride.
Yeah, the bus ride was just like awesome,
Yeah.
like seeing those kids. But the star night, like walking around and doing the stargazing, and our kids, Mr. Foot would have been so proud just hearing the conversations these kids. They were dropping knowledge on, and AstroCamp is an amazing camp because they have some of the brightest minds from astrophysics majors, engineering, and these kids were talking circles around some of these counselors at the camp.
That's right. It really was an amazing thing. And to not know how they're going to receive it, being away from technology, that was a huge deal because nothing that they go to requires them to do that. So for us to ask them to just trust us and step out in that kind of faith, and to have it be such a success. And, the second we got back, everybody, we hadn't even gotten back to school, just our waypoint at the for food, they were already lamenting that we were coming back. So we knew it was a huge success.
And another highlight for me was just seeing your face on the sky coaster.
Oh,
Can you tell us what the sky coaster is?
Sky coaster, I don't even know how you describe it necessarily, but basically you're hoisted up. People are pulling you up kind of on a pulley system, and then you're dangled there, and then you pull a cord to release yourself to swing in the air pretty high, and you just kind of let the momentum stop you. You just wait till you run out of swings. Yeah, you just drop, and it's something. It is something. I've never done anything like that. I also did this maze thing. Did they call it a labyrinth?
No, long division.
Yeah, long division. So that was, I'm super claustrophobic, and it was really, really tight quarters, but that was definitely a highlight for me. Pitch dark. And you couldn't see any of, up, down, side to side. You had no idea where you're going. But talk about having trust with the people around you and just kind of building that team, because that would have been incredibly terrifying for me if I didn't have that. But that, and then zip lining, I'd never been zip lining before, so that was pretty fun. It was just an amazing opportunity. The team building, but the kids, what they liked best, and they had all of these amazing things. They liked hanging out with people they don't typically talk to. So dorm time, the bus ride, meal times, that was their favorite.
Well, we knew it was going to be awesome, but we had no idea, like, in all their reflection pieces was the fact that they were hanging out with kids that they normally did not hang out with. And these are 8th graders. Some of these kids have been at our school since kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And the thing they walked away was, just that time together with people that they don't talk to on the daily basis.
Well, and then when they came back, that group of kids were pretty cemented together. They definitely had a shared experience that they will forever remember those people fondly, and it was like kind of something that bonded them together, which was just the coolest thing to see, especially for middle school kids, because they kind of get into their habits of their peers. So for them to be branching out like that, and it was just awesome. That's just definitely the highlight of the year.
Oh, totally. I mean, we cannot talk about, even students that, had a lot of fears and were anxiety about going on this trip, and the things that they overcame and they tried and, put trust in us and the chaperones and the counselors there to really push themselves to try these things that they never thought they could do in a million years.
Tons of fears overcome. That was amazing to be able to witness that, to be able to encourage it, and then have them see that it was worth taking that shot. So, yeah, I can't wait for this year.
Yeah, and even the counselors just talked about what a special group of kids that they had, and how respectful they were, and we celebrated a birthday up there. Mm-hmm. The counselors, their time was off, and they just want to hang out with us more, just because they just understood what a special group this was and what a special trip it was. And
it really was.
For year 2, just just the planning, where you have to, anytime you plan an out-of-state trip, you have to go to the board, you have to have literally all your ducks in a row. You literally have to go to the pond and get them in a row.
And we were right up against it. We definitely nailed our our deadlines. We did really well with that, but there's a lot that can happen. And so we were very, very fortunate with having everything lined up, having everything get the green light. We were extremely grateful for such a smooth trip, for sure.
Yeah, year 2 is going to be even better, and we cannot wait. I mean, just that buzz, like when they came back fifth graders are asking me, like, how do I get into AstroCamp? And be like, how do you go? And just that buzz is already there, and this group is just going to be so excited to do this trip.
So excited.
Transition into our second big highlight of the year. I think Mrs. Scofield, you teach a STEM class, and I teach like STEM/computer science. So that 7th and 8th graders, they get a dose of little of that within their special courses. And a lot of things that we like to do together is like team up and try these things. And you had your class do the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow, which is a competition geared towards high school and middle school students to come up with a problem in their community. And we were just blown away by what these 8th graders came up with.
For sure, because they really aren't asked to do things like that in their typical school experience. But we put this in front of them and said, kind of brainstorm some problems in your community. And then the things that they came up with, I had a smaller STEM group than you did, and I think we had 4 in my class. But then we narrowed it down to 2, and then you had more in your class. But the cool thing is that kids were so invested in these, what do you call it, the presentations or ideas, whatever, the things that they were putting in, that they actually took STEM a second quarter just because they wanted to see this through, because they were so confident in their proposal and their idea. And I remember one group especially, they didn't get selected, but the girls said, well, that's fine, but I think I'm going to take this idea and I'm going to keep going with it, because I think that this is really amazing. And since we submitted, I came up with X, Y, Z that I want to do. And so those are the kinds of cool things. So they have these opportunities, but then that's not where it has to stop for them. They can kind of take that, and if it's something they're passionate about, keep going with it. So do you want to talk about from your point?
Yeah, I had a group of 33 8th graders, and they broke up into groups of 4 or 5, but every single group was coming up with this like mind-blowing idea. Like, I was just so blown away. I was so excited about them identifying a problem in their community and really coming up with something. And I just love the idea that Celine, Emily, and Isabella came up with. And it was just such a cool process, because they came up with a Reliabelt. Like, they researched that a lot of cars do not have like GPS. Like, if you were in an accident, like this thing would attach to your seatbelt, and it would alert authorities to where you were based on GPS location. And it was just such a great idea. And they, working with her dad at Honeywell, so like we had the business partners kind of come in, and I really learned so much about the engineering design process, how to prototype, patent these things, and just learn about what was like the golden hour, or what was that
it was
term?
Something with if the help comes within that first hour, that it increases your chances of survival or something like that. That's the critical time.
And it was so awesome that their idea was selected among the top finalists in the state of Arizona. I think there's 2 middle schools and 3 high schools that were finalists. Unfortunately, they did not advance to the next round, but these girls, every day at lunch, they're in here, they're working on the application.
Oh my gosh,
they totally owned every step of the process, and it was so cool to work with these girls, celebrating their idea, and they were just so pumped up with it. And we're always looking for those competitions to celebrate our kids on the biggest stage, because if you give these kids the opportunities, that's where they shine the brightest, having that opportunity.
Well, and what you said that they told you when they came up with that one was that one of the girls had that idea for years. What'd she say?
Yeah,
like
fifth grade, yeah.
So to be sitting on that and then not be given any opportunity or forum to really go further with that, to be able to all of a sudden get the green light and creative freedom was just so cool for her to have that time to kind of see it through.
Yeah.
And I just think that was, and it was amazing that it was a group of 3 girls. So that was the only group that was all girls. Actually, you might have had one more that was actually a decent.
Yeah, I think
proposal
George's
too.
group.
Yeah, their group too. But it was neat to see them come up with something so higher level and to kind of showcase this amazing idea, then the steps with the Honeywell thing. I just loved it. It was a great way to kind of highlight what everyone's capable of, but I liked that it was a group of 3 girls.
Yeah, and I completely forgot about that, but yeah, that was like so powerful, and like both of us got goosebumps when she was telling us that, and we were so invested because we were just so excited, and
very invested.
It just those excited moments that you give kids, and you just have no clue like what they can do, and we're excited for this year's challenge to kind of hone it in, and this will be our 3rd year submitting ideas, and these ideas the kids come up with, and it's so awesome to see them celebrated on that stage.
I love it.
Now, the next thing, we haven't talked about Moxie Girls. Now, Moxie Girls is going into the 4th year of existence, and you want to talk about the origins of Moxie Girls?
Well, so we started Moxie Girls. We actually were just trying to get new robots, is pretty much how it started. We wanted to get new robots because we had taken a group of 3rd graders to compete in a first Lego League tournament. And we saw that they had these really fancy robots. And we kind of had like the Dotson robots.
Yeah, we had the NXTs,
Yeah,
and everyone else was rolling around with the EV3s.
I mean, it was a good little robot, don't get me wrong, but we were ready to upgrade. And so we wanted to do a grant, so we just kind of started looking, what would be a good thing to write a grant for, what would be our angle. And we weren't looking for this specifically, but everything we kept seeing was that there's a major imbalance of girls in the computer science and STEM fields. And so we decided, well, I think that's what our vision will be, is promoting girls in robotics and computer science. And so the more we kind of started playing around with the grant, the more we realized, I think we kept coming up at that point with these stats about mentorship and exposure and just getting girls into that conversation. And so we thought, man, this is a really bad problem. And then it kind of was like, we should probably do something about it. Maybe we could do something at our school that would kind of shift that conversation and start the momentum, just on a smaller scale from where we are. And so I think that's pretty much, and we had my daughter, we just kind of were like, perfect, this will be good. And we'll just kind of throw you into it, and her and her friends, and that was where Moxie
She was
Girls
the
came
MVP.
from. Yeah.
I mean, it really never would have got off the ground
No,
if like she
not
did not
without her.
recruit like all of her friends, and like at the time, some people were like, "Ew, robots!" Like coding, and
100%.
Ella like assured everyone it's going to be about like group work, like you're going to do so many cool things, and without that, it would not have soared the way it did.
But the funny thing is, when we were putting it together, there was a book that I just read, and they were talking about building the airplane while it's in the air. I mean, we really were building our airplane while it was in the air. And we didn't really tell Ella a ton because we hadn't really figured out a ton of what we were going to do. We just knew we would make sure it was amazing. We would make sure that the girls walked away thinking STEM and computer science was awesome, because we knew we could do that. We weren't sure how we were going to do that, but we just said, Ella, you get the girls and we'll figure it out. Just trust us. And she did, and the girls did. And I remember one of the girls that came to one of our first meetings, she thought we were going to be making t-shirts. Remember, she thought that's what the club was about, was t-shirt making. But they didn't know. I don't even think any of them really knew what computer science was at that point. Coding was really, really, really a new concept to pretty much all of them, and then definitely STEM, just limited. And even though we're a STEM academy, still girls being actively involved and like working with robots and just the coding things on the level that we did, it was very new, and they soared.
Yeah, and the best thing about it was the fact that they were all girls working together, and they were taking chances. They felt comfortable, and they talked about that time and time again of like, I would not have joined this club like if it wasn't all girls, knowing that they would have my back, they would support me, that I would not my voice would not be heard, and that was something that like we really always like cherish about like what that club became.
It really was amazing in that respect. And all of a sudden they became the face at our school of, wow, maybe this is pretty cool. Maybe because a lot of the girls, that were not part of it, at first we're just kind of watching what was happening. But the other thing that I was completely blown away with, and I think that we both were, is how mentors started kind of coming into our program. We knew we wanted to have female mentors because that's such an impactful thing for young girls and getting them into STEM and computer science. Do you remember what the stat is?
Yeah, then
it's the number one.
Yeah, it's Made with Code. Like there tons of great research. Like with Made with Code, they do a great job. I think it was like 1.6% of girls like after high school go into like computer science or STEM fields. And then the number one most powerful thing to get girls about that is like seeing females in that role. And, we created the Skype mentors, and we had some of the most amazing. Like girls doing some the coolest things. And that half an hour that we probably spend like once a month was the most impactful for all those girls.
All
just
of them.
Having to hear like where they've traveled, what they've done, how they use computer science and STEM in like their day-to-day lives, and the fact that they were women and they were some of the most awesome females.
So cool.
Talk about some of our Skype mentors we've had over the last couple of years.
Well, we had a lot of professionals, which I'll talk about in a second, but what I liked was I think our first female Skype mentor was a student at ASU, an engineering student. And she was just talking about engineering, what kinds of engineering there are available. And she would compete every year in this concrete canoe competition. And so she did a whole presentation via, I think she did PowerPoint, as I recall, and kind of talked through the whole process and just what the girls have available to them as far as engineering. And I would say 100% of those girls did not know anything about engineering. I don't think a single one. And they were blown away. And multiple girls said, like, I would love to do something like that. I would love to build canoes with, cement, and I would love to do this and that. And I would say we had that on a regular basis. After you'd have a Skype person, a mentor, then they would say, well, I'd like to do that. And didn't really matter what it was. It was just all of a sudden, I could do that. Like, look at these females in this role. I could do that too. And that was from drone experts to,
the lady from Target who worked with the Cat and Jack line, because the pilot was awesome. And those girls like basically walked out of the room and felt like they were floating on the ground and like, I would love to do this. Design, Jessica Hickey, awesome, talking about what she does at Create Space. Hillary, awesome, robotics, first Lego League in Arizona.
We had so many. A drone girl was a huge one also. But, and then I think the thing is for them, the one that came that was more of a hands-on was Z-Space, Thessa, and then just kind of introducing them to virtual reality and that was a totally new thing for them too. Just to be able to see that was really cool. It just opened up so many conversations, and that was the hugest thing. And then another really cool thing that came from the Moxie Girls was then another group of young girls started a mini Moxie group, and they were was it second grade?
All girls, Mrs. Edwins.
All girls. Second grade decided they wanted to be called mini Moxies. Oh, and the other person that we didn't talk about was someone at Honeywell volunteered her time to come teach the girls a coding language. What was it?
HTML.
Yeah.
So she's talking like HTML, CSS, and I'm blanking on the third one.
Did she start on Java?
Yeah.
So that was really cool because she did not know us at all, and that was the thing. All these people want to invest in the girls. They want to invest in kids to make a difference in their life. They know there's that discrepancy in as far as females being represented, and they want to do something. They want to be actively involved and encourage these girls. And so we were constantly blown away by the amount of support, the amount of dedication, the amount of time that people were willing to put in.
In year one, it was awesome. They were asked to come speak at the district office, and this is 4 years ago, and all of a sudden they became the face of girls in STEM and computer science. And I don't know if you talked about that fact, but it's like below 20% of like every major tech company. And it's a problem that Silicon Valley, they can solve any problem, but they cannot fix this gender inequity in these fields, and it's kind of we're going to take this on, we're going to do this. And you think about, what was the t-shirt company? They heard our story.
Magical Marketing.
And they heard the story. She wanted to donate shirts, just like so inspired.
That's right.
And those are the things that just kind of went on. And just even at the first Lego League tournaments, kind of just seeing this all-girls team, people were like, wow, how do you do this at your school? Like, what are you doing? And just those conversations of meeting people, taking the girls, taking them to conferences. We created an amazing presentation on equity in STEM. And people were just blown away by what the girls were able to share, give back, and just introduce it again. Just having the opportunity again to have the platform to try these things out where you dare to fail.
Yeah, you're safe to fail. That's the thing. I think that's the biggest thing for girls in a lot of these things is they feel like they need to get it perfect, and so they don't want to mess up. And so as they're trying to do trial and error, they just want to make sure that they get it right before they do it in front of people. And that's not how people typically learn. You have to be able to just try it out, and you're going to have kinks, and then you work them out together. But that's why those girls were just amazing. Their collaboration during FLL season was always just mind-blowing. And we would have two teams typically at least competing against each other, and one year we had three, right? Yeah. And so for them to collaborate with each other, they're competing against each other, but to work so intertwined and really be rooting for each other and willing to problem solve to help each other out. We were just completely amazed by those girls.
Yeah. And so this year, your big thing was first Lego League is a long season, it literally goes from August until January if you advance to the state championship. And a lot of these teams meet 4 or 5 days a week. Moxie Girls is 1 day a week for 90 minutes. And a big part of Moxie Girls too is just having that time to unwind. They always start off with snacks each week. Different girl brings snacks, and just those first 10 minutes of Moxie Girls is kind of the funnest time to see those girls' personality come out, hear stories, what apps they're doing, just for them to be kids. And I always enjoyed that time just to sit back and really watch them because, they're all girls together, just being girls, and it's awesome.
I love that part. And they do. These girls don't necessarily hang out. You have 6th through 8th grade. So it's a variety of age groups. They don't typically always see each other during the school day. Some of the 8th graders may have overlapping classes, but even them, they typically are kind of spread out. So it would be that time where they all get together. They have this common bond.
And the coolest thing about Moxie Girls and what it represents is that all of a sudden, these girls become the mentors to the younger group of girls coming up. They're seeing all the cool things they're doing. They're excited for Moxie. They can't wait to be part of this. And they have this great opportunity to be mentored by all these people in the industry. And all of a sudden, they're the role models, kind of passing that, paying it forward in a sense.
Yeah, so this year there was something that was forwarded to me by someone from the high school, and it was an opportunity for something called LA Promise Fund, and it is to encourage girls to get involved in STEAM, and I think that was their big focus. And so it was a grant that you could apply for, and the idea was that you had to come up with a project that you would have your kids meet that need. And so the Moxie Girls decided to do an outreach. They wanted to partner with the Girl Scouts and lead kind of a kind of help the girls get their badges for coding, robotics, STEM, things like that. But that didn't work out, unfortunately, and so we kind of regrouped, and they came up with the idea. One of our first grade teachers saw that we had got the Q robots, and she has what does she have, dot or dash? I'm always confused.
She had dash and dot before.
Okay, dash and dot, and she's really great with those, but she didn't know how to use the Q robots, and we had received a grant to get those. And so we had the girls go in and kind of do a tutorial and work with the first graders to teach them how to use the new robots.
The Q robots are pretty awesome. What
They
were
are.
some of the things that the girls loved about the Q robots?
I think that it's just fun because you see the personalities, and the girls are interacting with robotics, a lot of them for the first time, but they see how much fun it can be, the coding, the different personalities you can kind of give to these robots, and they just had a lot of fun with it. They're very playful. The problem solving of having to figure it out, because we didn't have those before, and they're different than the robotics that we had been coding prior. So it was really fun. They just had a blast with the first
With the
graders.
soccer, like those things already have like AI like embedded into them that they could recognize couldn't they recognize where the soccer ball was and keep it in front of it, the robot at all times?
They could do that. There was something else that was really popular that
They
were
love
doing.
texting. They love being able to
texting
text.
to each other. Yeah, and so they could write out commands in a text, and that would be. It was just there's so many neat things, and we just barely scratched the surface because we got those fairly late into the year. So this coming year, it'll be fun to see what they can do going forward. But they did that, and then the other thing that they decided was to 2 years ago, Moxie Girls hosted International Drone Day.
Well, talk a little more
Oh.
about like their experience going into the first grade classroom and kind of showing those off, like how
Well,
impactful that was.
So the first graders were so cute, but the girls really had to come up with how they were going to introduce the robots, how they were going to break up into the teams, and what their mentality was going to be, and working with them. And they were so good. These are older kids, and so to work with first graders, and it's just very different. But the funny thing is, because of their background in those dot and dash robots, the younger kids showed the Moxie Girls some things that they didn't know, because there were some similarities that overlapped between the two robots, and that was really cool.
Yeah, and that was awesome. I love seeing those pictures and the conversations, and you're like, look at the kids here, look what they're doing. They're just so excited. I love that part of like, how these girls have truly like become these role models in STEM education and computer science. And even with that, at the beginning of the year, you got that $500 APS. What grant was that?
Oh yeah, it was APS, Fund My Classroom or something. It was just something that APS decided to do to try and just help local teachers, and I believe it was just a random drawing, as I recall. So that's an amazing thing that APS decided to do, and we got drones, and that's something that we are trying to really bring much more onto our campus. So that was the first kind of segue into drones that it was a lot more user friendly.
Yeah, and a lot of the girls have never used drones before. And the LA Promise Fund, you all actually use some of your funds for that as well.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
Which is pretty cool. And, this is the second time that our school has hosted the International Drone Day, which is a day to celebrate drones are good all over the world. Pretty amazing thing that kind of happens. And 2 years ago, Moxie Girls was the youngest group to host an International Drone Day, and I'm sure this past year is still kind of the same thing. But that first day when they were out there flying the drones and just seeing all those girls, how excited they were, I'll never forget. I got Prachi up and flying, and Prachi was so excited, so proud. And then she walks over to me with her iPad, and I was like, Prachi, where's your drone? And then she didn't even want to tell me. And she's like, it's in the tree. I'm like, in the tree? I'm like, you kidding? And I had to get like the tallest ladder I could find, get that thing
Covered
out
in
there.
fiberglass.
Yeah, the thing was a hazard, let alone I get it down. And Prachi's like, what do I do now? I'm like, we get that thing back up and we fly. And,
right.
those girls are just so excited, flying drones, taking selfies, learning how to do these things. And Sophie's just amazing with drones and everything she does. But that was a big part of their LA Promise Fund, was hosting International Drone Day, which was just an awesome event to get people in the community excited about drones, have an opportunity to fly drones through the course there. But I just love seeing the girls fly these drones.
Well, and then even how you were saying about Sophie. So you have Moxie Girls, which get to go out and really mentor other people. But then even within Moxie Girls, that you have someone that has this expertise in drones, and for her to in one I don't even know how long it took her, maybe 15 minutes probably about, where she kind of went over everything with the girls and she had them flying, and it was incredible. And their faces that they could actually take the drone, have some simple instructions, and immediately fly that was just crazy cool.
Oh yeah, and we use the DJI Telos, which are amazing
those.
drones. Like, so easy to fly. You can code them on Scratch, drone blocks. But within 5 minutes, they were trying to do the palm landing, having drones land in their hand. They were trying to do doing the flips. They wanted to throw them up in the air. It was just so awesome to kind of see that excitement, and the people that we had out for International Drone Day was awesome. We had the Peoria Police Department, John Nunez, who does lots of security in terms of drones. He's done like Taylor Swift's concerts, Super Bowls. It's just so cool. Kind of goes on there. Someone from Yavapai College, Women Who Drone were there. It was just so cool to kind of see what is going on, like, in this next phase of robots that, we have flying robots now.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Now, Moxie is a great thing. Now, what are you looking forward most to in year 4 for the Moxie Girls?
I really feel like for the girls, so now most of them will be returning, which is cool because this last year was almost a complete fresh batch. So that was pretty tough because they had to kind of acclimate themselves to a lot of things. But then this year you have a lot of returning. And so just letting them have a voice in that. Definitely some podcasting, definitely some more YouTube videos, like video editing, things like that, I think would be really great. And I want them to do some programming, some more coding. And then the Q robots is huge. And then we have to figure out how to repair our tele drones, and I want them to kind of be part of that. Those motors they're a little bit tricky. So things like that. But, honestly, I also want them to have a voice and say, like, these are the things that we want to do. And then the innovative, what's the one?
Technovation.
Yeah, Technovation. I'm hoping that can kind of sync up with our timing as well, because we've never really been able to do that. More robotics and things like that, but just really get what's going to get them excited, because every new batch is going to have their own personality, these girls, and I want them to kind of take charge in a lot of ways. Yeah,
and back to the LA Promise Fund, this was the first year that they've actually taken it out of California. So pretty awesome that you guys were a part of this. So and cool. So many groups have like kind of come back year and year and kind of done this.
Many years. When I was listening to when they were doing, like, I don't know, it was like a webinar or something like that, the live awards, and you were hear these schools that kept coming back year after year, and they didn't win the previous years, and then they just kept trying, and so just their elation when they got announced as the winners after they persevered, it was really cool. So I really love that.
Yeah, and with that being said, we'll transition into one of my highlights of the year, something that Fox News does this. What do they even call it? Like Fox 10, Corey comes out and visits like all these schools and does like this pump up. And they came to the makerspace, which was awesome. We had kids in kindergarten through 8th grade kind of showing off all the cool things that they were doing. I absolutely loved it. It took us a lot of work to coordinate all the kids and parents getting there on time, making sure everyone knew what they were doing. But with all that being said, we probably had 30 to 40 kids in there. The camera crew, they just couldn't believe what was going on in this classroom. This is the coolest classroom that we've ever been to, and I love that because I love hearing, because it's been so much of our hard work through grants, donations, creativity to create this classroom, but to have kids in kindergarten through 8th grade not even clamoring for like camera time. They all just went to their own little projects they were working on. They went right to it, and it was just so cool to kind of celebrate the makerspace, see our school in such a positive light, showing off all the cool things the students are doing.
Yeah, just the pride and ownership of their stuff, like you were saying, and then such a wide range. It wasn't like just robotics or just coding. It was so many different things that were highlighted. You had the girls do the hydraulics project and Rubik's Cube, and there was so
was
many.
Makey project was awesome.
And, it's cool because it not only showed it was a chance for them to kind of shine, which they did. They really did. But then also just for other people watching the news to see all these possibilities and see kids achieving such amazing things. I was so proud, so proud.
It was an awesome day for public education and the district, and how they've supported like the computer science and STEM, trying to get into every school. And all of the research kind of goes back to getting these kids excited from kinder through the K through 12 education. And it was just an amazing day to kind of showcase how great our students are and how hard they work and how creative they are. So that was without a doubt my favorite moment of the school year, next to AstroCamp there.
Yeah.
Now, you always end the year in the most epic way. Now, how do you end the year with your 8th graders?
So we get to build rockets. So it's during the physics unit. It is end of the year. And so the interesting thing is, again, you have that mentality of failure that really is a barrier for kids, where they keep thinking, I cannot build a rocket. I cannot build a rocket. Tons of kids say that at the beginning of the year. Well, I'm not going to be able to do that. Mine's going to fail. I'm not going to be able to do it. And just for them to let go of that and then see with just a few simple, very simple materials, we go step by step, and they build a rocket, and then we launch them, and they have so much pride. And this year they did like last year, but I feel like each year is probably going to get better and better with just the pride and ownership of that. But they came up with a theme, they decorated it, the meticulous time that they just their efforts.
The artwork was amazing.
Unbelievable.
Like it was just absolutely insane. Like what were some of your favorite designs?
I really liked the Bob Ross one a lot.
That was Jaden.
Jaden's was really cool.
Chloe did the Kermit, right?
Chloe did the Kermit, but just all of them were so different. Gracie did the Grey's Anatomy one, which
sore
was
subjects.
I know. So that one never came. That one got thrown away, but it was a successful rocket. But just their stuff was so cool, and the amount of time, and then they realized So I didn't let that, if they had something wrong, it could go epically wrong, and not just wrong like, oh, it doesn't launch, but it can blow up, or, it could be problems. So there were things that they had, checkpoints that they had to hit. And if something was wrong, then I would say, well, how are you going to fix that? And then they'd have to go back, and they would feel very discouraged. But then when they had a finished product and it launched, they loved that. The parachute designs, we learned a lot about what works, what doesn't work, and talked a lot about what, just the components of all of that, drag and friction and, all of that. Thrust.
And the pride they took in their rockets was, this is the highest level I've ever seen them take the rockets, and how many kids want to take their rockets home.
Oh my
and
gosh, they do.
They would just talk about even the kids that had to go through the rebuild. I remember seeing Connor's oh, I got to rebuild the whole inside. And, how excited they are when I see them at the end of the day. I'm like, how did your rocket fly? And they were so excited, and then they want to talk about the epic failures that crashed, and the fact that, sometimes they would end up in people's backyards, and neighbors would bring them up to the school, and the kids would be so excited when their rocket would be returned.
Well, and then the other thing I thought was so cool is, remember, Landon loved the whole experience, and so he asked if he could take some materials home over the weekend, and if you could build a second one, and if I would launch it. And so he took the time to do it, and that is a lengthy, that's a lot of work. That takes a long time, and he did it in the weekend on his own, and he came back with a rocket to launch the next week, and we did, and it was another success. But for him, who knows what he'll do with that? That could spark a passion for him that, this will stem from this. It's just amazing. It was so great. And we had every single rocket launch successfully.
That's impressive. That's tough to do.
It really was.
Just that feeling of pride among the kids. It's like their highlight of 8th grade, and all the other classes when they come out and they're cheering them on.
I love the community of it.
Just how much the kids love that. They're building rockets, It's this is the future of SpaceX, and these kids are doing things that they never really thought they could do prior.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole thing for us, is stretching what they know they're capable of, and not everything is easy. And I think rockets, Rubik's Cube that we do, there's a lot of things that we put in front of them that are not easy. And I think those are so awesome, because then it really helps foster that, okay, you failed, and then tweak it and go back to it and refine it and then keep going back. And I love that about rockets and pretty much all the stuff that we have the privilege to teach them, just because they're going to become so resilient, and these are going to be our future Google employees and people that run the world, which is awesome.
Yes, and we didn't even talk about like we got a Rubik's Cube team. Like we've been doing the Rubik's Cube the last 3 or 4 years.
4 years.
4 years, and we just threw it together like with 3 weeks. Like we're like, all right, we're gonna get both teams going this year.
It was so cool.
So we did our 4 through 6 division, and then we did our 3-5 division,
yeah.
and then our 6, 7, 8, and to get 8 kids on each team like solving the cube, and 8 kids that can show up on that weekend and solve the cube was pretty amazing.
Oh, those kids
and,
hadn't
like,
even known how, most of them from the
in
younger
3 weeks,
group.
yeah. So they went
That's
from
crazy.
for the younger group, like they went in 3 weeks, like, and I can't believe we forgot to talk about this highlight. You just reminded me. In 3 weeks, we had 2 teams competing at the tournament, which is so awesome for them to have that experience. And just already, like, how many younger kids are like, when's Rubik's Cube starting up next year? And we're just like, all right, we're gonna do it. And then we had that half day. That's like one of my highlights of the year. Like we had a half day the day before the Rubik's Cube tournament, which was on a Saturday at ASU West. And we said we're gonna have Rubik's Cube at 3:30, like thinking like maybe 5 to 10, like get one more day in. The entire team showed up on a half day, except one kiddo who was sick.
Even kids that weren't even going to go to the tournament,
Yeah.
they still just wanted to be at every single possible thing. That was amazing. Like just when they walked in, we were both just so giddy. It just blew our minds. Yeah. But that older team, they had kids that knew how to solve the cube, and they had more kids that knew how to solve the cube. But then there were kids that learned. But that younger group, and that's going to be our group that comes back year after year, and like from them to go from nothing, literally we had to sit down and teach them that, but then they had to take it home, and then they had to practice outside of that, and they did, and I was just floored.
And the older group, they were amazing, like with taking time, sitting down with these kids, really mentoring them and showing them, and some of these kids just learn on their own. I mean, this is like the age that we're in with these kids, and it was truly amazing to kind of see like what they did with it and how they ran with it. So it was pretty amazing there. Mm-hmm. All right. I mean, 2018, 2019 was a great year. Whew. I'm looking forward. We got about a month left until the doors open. Kids are in our classes, and we're ready for another year.
It's going to be awesome. I can't wait.
Well, this is a great reflection piece, and I look forward to like where we're going to grow in this upcoming school year, and when we're doing the same podcast next summer and looking back and we're reflecting on the school year about all the amazing things that happened, all the great failures. Bring on the next school year.
Amen. I love it.
All right, we're going to leave you on that. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. If you're like us and you can't get enough of the Nailed It Wall, you can follow us on Twitter. You can find me at Mr. Lane the STEM Guy.
And me at A Positive Proton.